What's going on, everybody? Listen, welcome to Mental Health Matters with Marty on our Monday edition, and we are so glad that you are here with us. Listen, I hope you all have had an amazing day. Listen, we come to you live here from Southern California. The time has changed on us. I'm not used to it getting so dark so quickly. I don't know about you. I've been struggling this week. Listen, I was starving at 11 o'clock for ready for lunch and everything. So listen, hope you are doing all right. Let us know that you are out there. What's happening, everybody? Hey, Radine, hope all is well. How's everything going for you? Let us know you're out there, you're listening. And of course, if you do not know, y'all, I'm working this myself tonight, so be patient with me. Listen, my name is Marty Sellers, and I am your mental health hygienist coming to you, hoping you are doing well. So again, pray everyone is doing well, you're staying safe out there, and that, hey, we are here. We are so excited today just to be having this conversation as so many of us. What's going on, Thomas? Hey, man, hope you're doing out there in the DMV. Y'all staying safe. We are one day out from this thing called election. And one of the things we definitely want to talk to you tonight is really about something that's very serious and near and dear. I know that September is Suicide Awareness Month, but November is also a celebration of those who've been the survivors of that. And I want to definitely have the conversations with how everything is going, how you are doing in that, and just keeping your head up and staying encouraged. Because during this time, we want to have just some real conversations about what it looks like in our communities. What is the trending rate? Who are the highest I don't even say offenders, but who are the highest people who are participating? What are the age demographics that we are looking at? And we need to have real conversations, although they might be difficult conversations. But I say it this way all the time. We can no longer shrink and hide in the shadow of shame because we are not talking about. So I say we don't have to suffer in silence in the shadow of shame any longer. But you all know what I say. Speak up, speak out, and live. So listen, like and share, get some people on there. We're having this real conversation today, and I'm so excited to have with me on the first time on the Mental Health Matters with Marty show. Special guest. Listen, so excited. This young brother is doing it out there. He is a trauma expert. We need trauma and recovery experts out there. So glad to have him. He's doing his thing out there. And whenever we can bring new and exciting people on the stage, listen, I always want to do that because I don't know it all. I don't. And I learned so much from our guests out there. And so without any further ado, I want to bring to the Mental Health Matters with Marty show. I got to get all those claps and all those other things on here, Brother Cory, but none other than Cory George-Davis on here. Welcome. I'm bringing you on. Here we go. Hey, man, how you doing?
Well, thank you for finally having me. I know, yeah, because we were scheduled 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Life happened.
It does.
And I'm back, and we're going to talk about life happening. You know,
yeah.
And we're going to get realistic, honest, and may
That's
not
right.
be comfortable, but it's necessary.
That's right. So let me tell everybody who you are. Hey, Cory, we got the. So tell us about who you are, what you do, man, because I've been following you for a while now. Love everything you do, your professionalism, the quality, what you do, and how you reach so many people, man. So definitely tell us about yourself, what you do.
Awesome. Well, I am living my purpose in progress. So, you know, every day I'm always learning how to be effective, living outside of myself and realizing that I'm put here to serve, whether that's through my life story or whether that's through learning from my life story and how I can capitalize on that so I can give that back to you guys in these forms. I am what I consider a trauma recovery specialist because I recovered from my own trauma, but not only that, I've been educated in trauma. I am a certified clinical trauma specialist, and I specialize with individuals, families, sex addicts, drug addicts. I have experience working with those who are suffering from forms of PTSD and complex trauma.
Yes.
I work with suicidal people quite often, unfortunately, and it's always folks of color.
Right.
And the conversations are very interesting because the sad part is, I will say this right off.
Yeah.
One of the main reasons why they contact me is because their family isn't listening. their family doesn't take it
Yes.
seriously, or as we talked offline, some
Yeah.
other variables that happened that all they needed was someone to just listen, even if you have no answer.
Yes.
Sometimes they don't feel like their concerns are valid enough or as
Right.
important because it's measured against other things that they're trying to do. You know,
You said that, and I want to back up real quick
no, you're
because,
fine.
when we're having these conversations, because they're uncomfortable, Corey. Let's talk about. Nobody wants to have these conversations.
At all.
Yeah, they're very uncomfortable. But how do we and how can we, especially you are a trauma specialist and a trauma recovery specialist, which involves so much because we all know so many people in our families that are recovering from lots of things, whatever that might be. Why is it difficult, and why is it difficult for us, especially in our communities of color, black communities, our black families, that we don't like having these conversations about recovering from trauma?
I will tell you one of the reasons that may get people on their ears right now, and kind of shock a few people now that I've lived a life. I'm 47 with kids who are thriving teens. Sometimes having a conversation with family members, especially, feels like a reflection of what you didn't do right.
Ooh.
So, and you being a parent, how often
Yes.
are you? I think parents are always going through this thing of, am I doing it right? And then when a
Yes.
child or someone actually confirms that you're not, it's devastating. So as we talked offline,
Right.
it becomes a personal thing. So it's not that we're afraid of the trauma always. We're afraid of the conversation and the healing and the microscopic view that we got to do because of that trauma.
Yes. Yes.
If my child is acting out, don't ask the child what's wrong with them. Ask the child what happened to you. That becomes a whole different conversation.
Why is the because I get you. So instead of asking them what happened to them or what's wrong with you,
Right.
as we often do. Well, what's wrong with you? Well, why you got your ask them from, you're saying, from what happened or even how's it going, or in just reframing that question so it's more less accusatory.
No, it's two reasons. Because usually when a child suffers trauma, and I won't speak on the child aspect, but then when I talk about children, if it's not solved, it becomes an adult issue as well, as you know. So
Yes.
when you ask a child what's wrong with them, they're going to give you the symptoms of
Right. Right.
which then goes to self-blame. I must be wrong. If I'm
Right.
acting out, I'm wrong. So you
Right.
are that I already think I'm lower than dirt. So, but then when you ask me what happened to me,
Right.
that forces me to make a decision. Am I going to reveal something that is the root to the symptom that we keep trying to punish? And so
Yes.
when we say what's wrong, it's a punishment.
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
punishment for something we don't even know what's happening.
Yes.
So if that child is truant, is it that the child misses school, or is the child being bullied to where he doesn't want to go to school?
Yes.
That's when you ask the right questions, because as
Wow.
parents we get frustrated, so we just want to just make things stop. We don't want
Yes.
to have the methodology and the time taken from that. So
Yes. Listen, if you are just joining us, listen, you need to be on this conversation that we are having with none other than Cory George-Davis. Listen, he is a trauma recovery specialist, and too many of us are suffering in silence from some trauma that we have not dealt with. And so we have these repeated negative patterns, some family patterns. I always do this. Cory, a lot of times when I'm talking to our families, I believe in shaking family trees.
Yeah.
I do that. And I want to trace some of these patterns, because if there's a negative pattern within the family, we can see where can I change and change the trajectory of our family pattern, our family habits, our negative thoughts process.
well, and also when we say that, I want parents and parents as well as caregivers to understand that it's not
Yes.
saying that you're doing something wrong knowingly. It
Right.
could be the way that you frame
That's
the
it.
question quite often.
Right.
Because some parents may not be equipped enough to just hear, well, how would it feel if you said it this way? Sometimes it's a change of wording. It's not that we think
There
that
we go.
you're doing something horrible. I think I'm a great parent, but I think that there's always room for improvement.
Always.
There's always. And then what I do for my children, I don't live by the adage that children are seen but not heard, because that makes it so much easier for them
Right.
to silence.
Right.
I want my children to be comfortable, because this whole thing of inflicting fear in children, that's what the perpetrator does. So we can become the perpetrator. Let's be
You're
clear.
right.
I'm not raising my kids like my grandmother raised my mom.
Right.
She was scared
And
to
that was
tell
a
my mother things.
that was a different time frame.
It was a different time, and even then, that didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we understand what didn't work, let's just try something a little different until it sticks.
But don't
And
you?
also, yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead. And also,
and then I was also saying, as my kids grow, so does their needs. So what I did at 7
mm,
is different than 13.
yes.
What I do for my
Yes.
16-year-old now, my language is a little different than my 13 year
Yes.
old.
Yes. I
But
love that's
again,
good.
it can be difficult because we're working all day and we're dealing with COVID, we're dealing with
Yeah.
homeschooling.
That part.
I'm the lunch man, so I got to
Yeah.
deal with working, and then I got to go make lunch at 12, and I forget, and my kids are starving. I feel like I failed. So
Right.
accidents happen and mistakes happen, but it's the rebound
Yes.
that's possible.
I love what you're talking about. You're talking about even in having these what can be difficult conversations that we have to. I always use the Q-tip philosophy. Quit taking it personal, so that we're not feeling attacked. It's not attack on you as a parent, but your child could be going through something, and give them permission to express themselves without you taking it personal, saying, "Well, just get over it." All that negative language that we sometimes do that forces them or encourages them. You know what? My mom or my father, they're not going to listen to me. So why tell them anything?
Well, and one valuable lesson I tell anyone who's caring for children is that it's our responsibility to model the behavior that we want them to emulate.
Right. Right.
So when we go deeper and we say, I want you to be able to moderate your own behavior and moods. If they see you escalate at the drop of a dime, if something is out of order on their sofa when you get home,
Right.
why would you expect them to talk to you calmly?
Yes.
So I do put the responsibility first on the parents, because we're charged with molding and protecting. That's the first thing I say. And then secondly, just listen, because kids talk in their own language.
They do.
And it's not just talking, it's body language.
Right.
When I see my kids' body language shift from the normal, I'm just and I don't walk in with an accusation. I said, are you okay today? If they were one way before they left school and they're different,
There we go.
Yeah, so tell me, so how was school today? So
Yes.
what was the best part of school today? What was the
Right.
worst part? You're
Yes.
inviting them to tell you in their own way. It's quite different than saying, okay, so who touched you? Well, wait a minute, nobody went there yet.
Right. Right.
It could
But I
be
love what you
something-
did. You asked them open-ended questions where we're not, and when we say open-ended, we're definitely talking about giving them room to breathe and express themselves without saying fine, yes, no, all
And
of
not
that.
only that, as we go back to not taking it personal,
Yes.
may not open up their first day. What if it takes them 4 days and one day?
Yes.
That they're totally comfortable knowing that they will be received. There are times I know something's wrong with my kids.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
absolutely know.
Well, a lot of times
And
we
it may not
do.
be that, but it may not be that 6th day on a Sunday morning where they say, Dad, you have time to talk. Something happened last week and I want to talk about it. Okay, now I can breathe.
Right.
But every day, like every parent, I am thinking the same thing they are. What's wrong with my kids? But I got to think myself, because it's not me.
Yes. We have a comment on here. This is actually my cousin back in Ohio. It says, recently we have had a suicide completed in Columbus, Ohio. Because this was the loss of... Oh, wow. Didn't know. Donald... Really? Wow. Do the research. Have no idea of this act. I can listen to you talk. Yes. Show some action. That's right. That's right. We have to. Let's jump into this.
Yeah. So let's get into suicide. So for the first thing I'd like everyone to know, suicide, if you didn't know, was the 3rd largest killer of Black men between the ages of 15 to 24.
Yes.
These are our young people.
Say that one more time. So for the one in the back of the balcony in the pew that did not hear the amen.
Suicide is the 3rd largest killer of Black men between the age of 15 to 24.
Yes, listen, y'all, the 3rd largest killer of our young Black men between the ages of 15 and 24 is suicide. Why aren't we having this discussion? Why aren't we talking about this? Why aren't we trying to go after and listen to our Black men instead of the stereotypes that we've had? Suck it up, shut up, don't be a punk, man up. Men don't cry. Right. We don't show your emotions, because you're gonna be weak if you do.
Let me tell you, I will cry you under a coffee table.
Listen, I understand.
I'm just being honest. I cry watching YouTube. Welcome Home Troops all the time. So, but my kids know that crying is not a crime. But I will say, how long are we gonna do that? How long
Right.
Right. And what's our solution?
Right.
So let those feelings out because I want to humanize men. And there's this analogy I use quite often.
Mm-hmm.
Man is a subset of the whole word human, so we've taken the other part out,
Mm-hmm.
and we're
Yeah.
only focused on the subset of our whole being.
Right.
So for example, anger isn't a bad emotion; it's how you dispel it.
Yes.
Love is not horrible. It's how
Right.
you experience it.
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
excitement, these are all human emotions. It's
Yes.
how you cycle them out of your body that matters most. So instead of saying, being sad is a punk thing, no. How do you respond to being sad?
Yes.
Are you holding that sadness in, and it becomes the reason why you want to end it all because you it's so much despair. You don't know how to sort last week's sadness from last year's sadness because no one gave you that permission. And what I
Or the
teach men,
tools.
and yeah, and what I teach men is I give you permission, but you never needed it from me. I want you to
Mm.
learn that if anyone makes you feel that you need permission, then they should not be in your sphere. They shouldn't.
Yes. Can we address? Okay, so we identify that suicide is the third largest killer
Yes.
among
Yes.
our young black male boys between the young men between the
Mhm.
ages of 15 and 24. What does anger look like? I know what it looks like.
Mhm.
How do we recognize the signs? Let's just deal with our young boys first, our young men. I got because they are young men.
Are you saying signs of anger or signs of suicide? You're talking about
I'm
signs of
saying signs of that could be some signs of suicide, but also, and I'm glad you said that because anger can be misdiagnosed as being oppositional, defiant, or anything. When I'm seeing, and I know when I see an angry young black man,
Mhm.
the first thing I want to ask Cory is this: talk to me about your depression. Talk to me about what's going on in your life. What's causing this anger,
Mhm.
and how can we de-escalate that? Because anger is one of the symptomologies of depression, especially
Well,
for men.
yeah.
And men are going to be angry instead of saying, they're not going to walk around like, oh, I'm sad and boo-hooing in public. They're going to
Right.
be angry.
So what we have in common is we both work with anger management. That's our certification
Yes.
as well. And what you're doing is taking them through a life story, meaning
Yes.
take me through your daily story, because one of my kids has also been diagnosed with the same thing. So what I do is I realize that he may respond at 2 p.m. for something that happened at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So I
Right.
say, take me through your day. So you
Right.
acting out right now has nothing to do with what just happened at home. This happened at
Yes.
school with this classmate. And
Yes.
so when you take them through their journey, you give them the voice to learn how to be in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and that moment is okay. So for whatever reason they waited, so perhaps they don't feel like people who are around them care enough to actually hear, or they believe that that's what boys do. So again, we're going
Mm-hmm.
back to, so what have you been told about anger? Because that's a good question. What have you been told
Mm-hmm.
about anger? And you'd be surprised
Yes.
if they say, well, anger's bad, and if I act out, then I must be bad. Well, who told
Mm-hmm.
you that? So what evidence do you have that supports that? Because then you force them to rationalize their own thoughts that way.
Yeah, and we're just saying, and definitely now, as I hear you say, that there definitely can be anger is one of the signs.
Yeah,
Some of the other symptomologies, and please jump right in here with me,
yeah.
Cory. With that, is definitely isolation.
Isolation is one of the biggest. People
Mm-hmm.
usually complete suicide because of isolation.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
if you have that friend that is usually alone, check on them quite often. That's that
Yes.
person.
Yes.
You can talk and if people are stockpiling drugs or um, drugs or weapons, if they can
Yeah.
verbalize
Yes.
that they've thought about it, take it serious.
Yes.
Um, with when they withdraw from the social networks.
Yes.
And also
Yes.
nowadays, pay attention to what people post.
Yes.
If these are your friends
Yes.
that they're posting in an abnormal way, and it's not always about being sad. What if all of a
Right.
sudden they're posting nude pics and you know that that's not them?
Right.
That's a problem. So we think that suicide looks like always a downward fall. It could be just an outward expression of, I'm done. I don't care. I've had people tell
Yes.
me I post this way because I don't care. And it's
I
not
love
even
it.
angry posts.
Yeah, because
You
it's
know?
a total change of their normal behavior,
Yeah.
changing in patterns, changing in behavioral patterns,
Sleep patterns, also
sleeping
sleep
patterns.
patterns.
Yes,
So
yes.
like and
Friend
also
patterns.
and also sleep patterns is also that's also leaning towards a case of depression as well. When you look
Yes.
at reckless behavior, if this
Mm-hmm.
person goes from not drinking but once a week to drinking every day, or every time you see them out, it's always a risk. If they're
Yes.
hopeless and they're telling you that they feel hopeless, if they look disheveled when they don't
Yes.
normally do, there are some
Yes.
people that love the scraggly beards, but you don't do that.
Yes.
What's going on in your life?
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask, because sometimes the reason why they're there is because no one's asked, and
That's
so
right.
they don't feel important. Ask the
Yep.
basic questions. How are you feeling today?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
yeah.
Some basic things like that. So what are some other things? Because definitely as a trauma specialist that you have, I love this. What Pam is saying here says, always check on people. It can make a big difference too. You are absolutely right, Pam. Checking on people, because it does make a big difference,
Yeah,
especially during this pandemic. Wouldn't you say one of the things that's definitely has increased, which they're not doing a lot of reporting on, are the suicides that's happened
it's
because of the COVID?
everything's increasing. You have
Yes.
domestic violence increasing.
Yes.
You
Yes.
have all types of violence, and as well as self-inflicted violence. But
Mm-hmm.
also, when you think of not just the pandemic, you think of um, the social unrest.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
think of politics now too.
Yes.
I'm worried about what folks are going to do tomorrow. You know,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
these are all things happening at the same time. This is a combustion. It's not things happening in succession. They're happening
Yes.
at the same
Same time.
time.
And then people feel overwhelmed that
It is. I feel
they've
overwhelmed
taken.
and I know what to do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And people need to hear that. We being professionals, and part of the group that I'm with therapy, black male therapists, we're a group now. We're about up to about 700 of us. And in that, we just have this free conversation of where and how we are doing.
Yeah.
And shout out to Aaron Mew, who's done this out of New York, who brought us all together. But sometimes we just have these conversations that's, hey, bro, how you doing?
Yeah.
I'm not doing well.
And
then
that's
you
healthy. That's a realistic way, because what you're doing is you're humanizing each person, because our work makes us look superhuman, because we know how to. Sometimes I break down.
Right.
But what I also wanted to also add to that is, when you look at the way that media has portrayed suicidal attempts, it's always with police officers, a gun
Thank
to
you.
someone's head.
Yes.
It's always dramatic. And I will tell you, 100% of the people that called me were so calm and said, I just want to go.
Yes.
And people did not
Yes.
take them serious, because they literally said, like our tone, I'm done.
Yes.
And so now we look at how media has shifted, not even shifted, but it's influenced how we look at that too, because that can
Right.
be difficult for us to know the difference, because we've
Right,
been
right.
massaged.
Yes. You see,
by
I got an
media.
interrupter that just came in here, but it's all good. Tony,
No,
where'd
it's
you?
fine.
I'm being a daddy at this time too. Say hello to everyone.
Hi, nice
Okay.
to finally meet you.
Dada, but I want to watch Angry Birds in the living room.
Okay, you can watch Angry Birds in the living room. Go tell Grandma to help you out. And call Christian, please. Okay, thank you. You know how it is juggling a couple hats here.
I have a
with
new husky at home, so thankfully she's downstairs. She's not scratching at the door.
Right.
But yeah, so there's so many things that are underwriting our fair attempts as professionals
Yes.
to get the word out and to make it stick. Because again, we can say all we want, but it's like sending an abuse victim back to her
Yes.
abusive wife or husband.
Yes.
If it's all of that over there, how much impact can we have? So we have to have these conversations as often as possible. And I want to hear from people. So listen, if you have your questions,
Yes, please
if you're dealing with
ask.
someone that you may think is on the cusp, ask us, because we may have some answers or some resources for you.
Yes, definitely. And definitely, what I wanted to also put up there is a couple of these hotline numbers. There's a couple of great things out there. This was, you can always text home to 7421, excuse me. It's actually 741741. I'll correct that. You can always text that to, and that will get you some text messaging help too, because especially with this generation who are always text messaging, they are fabulous at that. So I'm glad that there is some resources out there that can help them with that as well.
Yeah, and and also to let people know that people are on people on most hotlines are thoroughly trained.
Yes.
It's confidential. And
Yes.
it's a national hotline number, but they will route you to the most convenient place that's near you, for your help. So whether it's a hospital,
Yes.
they do what they do, and they love what they do.
Yes.
And they're trained in it. These are people that are not just off the street wanting a part-time job. They know the intensity of this work. And like I
Yes.
said, it's confidential. No one needs to know
Yes.
that you called, or you can, but now the way that it's done, but you could also chat via the internet. So you don't even have to make a call.
Yes. Yes. There's a wonderful app when I was at the American Counseling Association out in Atlanta, Georgia, about 2 years ago. These amazing teenagers, brother and sister, black children, created this amazing app called Not Okay. And it
I think I've
is,
heard of that.
yes, it is absolutely fabulous. There's a lots of apps out there that can definitely help in this as well. So resources are there, but I think what we lack, Cory, is access and knowledge to these tools and instruments that can help us out.
Yeah. I was just going to say that I think lack of knowledge is interpreted as lack of access because we don't know
Yes.
about it. But as I tell people, we have smartphones that can do almost anything.
That's right.
It can save your life.
That's right.
It can save your life. And what I want to talk about is us as a culture and why suicide is such a hard
Taboo.
conversation. We go back to talking about how suicide is portrayed in the media as this big event of these epic proportions, and sometimes it is just a person just being in isolation and they've had enough. But then we talked about, but then as we talked about offline before this, sometimes people are have a hard time with talking about suicide because we take it personal, meaning
That's it.
if my brother has committed suicide, I can't talk to him because I'm hurt.
Right.
And I'm like, get you out of this. We're trying to save a life. Let's be real. Let's cut to the chase. If I'm helping you and your family, we're trying to save a life.
That's
Yours
right.
is fine.
Right.
Yours is fine. Let's have that. Like, there are times I feel like Van Zandt, I got to get real. Like, listen, hey, y'all are playing.
Yes.
You can't get help if it's all about you. You're in that regards, you're fine.
Yeah.
And in those experiences, that's partly why they are suicidal at times, because they don't feel seen
or heard in that. And this is I wanted to look at some of the other things because I've had some clients and some of the things that I think a lot of parents don't know is even when we have cutters. Because cutting is a part what I think of that whole suicide ideation and some of that comes along with that as well. Because go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting because it can be twofold. Because self-harm can be strictly just for stress release. It's just a horrible way to do it.
Right.
Or what could happen is if the cutting is escalating.
Yes.
So if it's regular cutting and it's always been the same, it's not good either way. We just need to give them some other stress management skills.
Yes.
That's one. But if you know they're cutters and if they come to you saying it hurts more than usual.
Yes.
Or if you notice the scarring is different.
Yes.
That means it's escalating and they may be having a hard time coping with stress.
Sometimes
it's an accidental suicide.
Yes, it can be.
So not always purposeful. I have friends, well, not friends, but I know somebody that takes pills to go to sleep. Well, the issue about that is when you take alcohol and drugs, you build a tolerance.
Yes.
Your body
and it takes more
the same way. So so your organs are affected the same way.
Yes.
But the way it affects your mind, it takes longer. So by the time they're trying to find comfort in, if there's an addiction there, they can overdose and not even realize that they were not trying to kill themselves.
Right.
They were just trying to find the comfort. So then we ask ourselves, what do you do to seek comfort?
Yes.
Because sometimes suicide, I tell clients, suicide is a final answer for usually a temporary issue.
Temporary issue. Yep. You're so right. You're so right.
There's no undoing. And I also say, but what if you survive, but then you're handicapped or you can't function?
Yeah.
So, but it's never an easy conversation. I have not had one client that I turned around in an hour. It's not. It's not a 1 hour session. It's usually several sessions that we're having. Because my goal is, right in the moment, I need to find you some support. I need, I'm your support now because I need to get you through this moment.
Yes.
I need you to make me a promise because we have these suicide, pacts and promises.
Yes.
Promise me to not harm yourself at least for the next day.
Yes. Thank you.
So
and I love it. We take small steps to recovery. Yes. Yes.
So my goal, and so when I get a call, my goal is to usually to get them to talk to me first, because sometimes it's just that they didn't know how to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be surprised at how much comfort they get that someone asks
Mm-hmm.
them what happened to you, as opposed to what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to you? You know? So maybe they
Yes.
lost their job, or maybe
Yes.
something happened. Okay, let's talk about what that means to you.
Yes. Yes.
And then once I can talk them off the ledge or whatever that is, okay, so can you promise me that you won't do
That's it.
anything
That's it.
until the morning, and you call me back, and and can we continue this conversation? Can we put some resources in place, or is there anyone that we can try to get you comfortable with talking with in your support system, that can sit with you, that you can lean on?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it's just that they feel alone, and no one, and no one understands. So the quick therapy is, why don't you feel that someone understands? Get
Yes.
into the little story that they were not able to share with anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here's a comment I want to definitely say. It says, during case review, I find some therapists that don't validate feelings. Instead, they go into fixing them mode and misses the connection to talk about what led to making such a decision.
That's very true. No,
Yes.
that's very
Thank
true.
you for chiming in on that. That is so
Yeah,
true.
because my job is not to fix. My job is to give you the power to find your answers.
Yes.
We can get into fixing, because sometimes it's an ego-based thing when everybody's trying to
Right.
fix somebody. My
But
job
how
is
can you fix something if you don't understand what is causing the problem?
yeah,
How can I be a
yeah.
plumber and I'm saying, oh my kitchen sink is broke, but it's the toilet upstairs. And you're like,
and
wait a minute.
That's the reason why. That's the reason why when you would ask a young black man, what happened in his day, that's allowing him to understand that there's a root to everything. Some people don't understand because they're only responding to the symptoms of it.
Yes.
Secondly, it's important because I can't help you if I don't know what I'm helping you with.
Right.
People may say, "Oh, okay, can he call you because he's suicidal?" I don't know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So when I call you, I need to understand that path that led you there.
Yes.
So, and sometimes it's amazing how when people hear themselves talk out loud, that they come to
Yes.
their own answers. It's like, oh, you just never said it out loud. Sometimes I have to sit
Yes.
back and let people talk.
But isn't that the part of the point of therapy? Just really to get it out. And oftentimes most people are ready to get it out. And even in your trauma recovery, a lot of times after they get it out, you feel so much better. Or at least you start to think clear-headed in that.
Yeah, but here's also the magic I give my clients, and I think everyone who works in trauma does this, is that people forget that when you go through trauma, your mind reacts a certain way. So then the symptoms are typical of trauma. So
Mm-hmm.
when you validate that, hey, I understand why you're doing this, because you suffered a major trauma. Don't be so
Yes.
hard on yourself. The average person
Yes.
would have responded in that way.
Yes.
Instantly, it says, I'm not wrong for feeling the way I do.
Yes.
Maybe the responses to that stress is extreme, but my feelings of despair, my feelings of hopelessness is valid.
Yes.
And then it says, oh, you gave that part of my life back because I thought something was wrong. So going back to when we started, what happened as opposed to what's wrong. And some people
Yes.
in their mistaken way of helping will say, well, why do you want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
That then shifts the blame back to them. Is, if I don't know why I want to do that, then I must be wrong. So we
Yeah.
have to be careful of giving people the understanding that when life happens, people respond a certain way.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, and
I love it. Joanne even says it's got to address those triggers and those precipitating events that happens.
Yeah.
But I love this comment. It says suicide pacts are on the rise. I haven't seen so many young black brothers wrestling with these thoughts. We have to be, I think for us, a lot of our black brothers and sisters are more because we've always had this, what goes on in this house stays in this house. So
Yeah.
some of those pacts, I don't think though, and don't get me wrong, I have not done the research, so I'm just saying off of my opinion on this with that. I don't know if it affects us as drastically, and I could totally be wrong about that. But I don't want to take it lightly. I don't know. Have you done some research with that, on that, with suicide pacts?
I have, but it's very interesting with suicide pacts.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it really for us. I haven't seen the numbers rise for our culture.
Yeah, and we could be, like I said, we're just basing without doing any research. So I wanted people to say, "Oh, well, we don't know."
No,
It could happen, but we're just saying.
It's been noticed, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's been noticed with white cultures a lot,
Mm-hmm.
especially teenage kids.
And especially with the internet and what
Yeah.
they're doing on, and definitely parents, we encourage, listen, check those accounts, especially
Listen,
when they're trying to.
so because I have two kids. I have no family. I monitor what they're on. I have safe words in there.
Yes.
Because they're in school, they can only be on it during a certain time anyway, and it turned off. You go. I don't care if you watch a TV or read a book, but this computer is off. My 13-year-old has less of a liberty than my 16-year-old.
Of course,
But
age
also,
appropriate.
my 16-year-old has proven that he's a little bit more responsible too.
Okay.
So, and I tell people, if I'm paying for your phone and you're living in the house and you're underage, that's my property. Now, that doesn't mean that I invade, because I want you to.
Right. There's a balance in there. Yes.
I want to see what you do with it, but just know that if I feel like I need to check to keep you safe, because the 13 and 16-year-old, you don't know what the makings of a predator looks like. You may think this is a friend in your age group chatting with you in a chat room about a game, but then you don't know that this is a 47-year-old woman or man trying to groom you. And then even those things about relationships and manipulation can play into suicide as well.
Yes.
So but going back to having the conversations in the household, what I told you offline was it has to start early. Sometimes we think that if we start with our teenagers, but as you know, in psychological development, personalities are already solid.
Yes.
It's almost a closed case. Like, you have to undo years of molding. So as I told you, I started talking with my kids during preschool every day. So how was school, and what was the best day of your school? What was the worst part? What did you like most? And then it became automatic that when I picked them up, they just start telling me about their day, because it was a routine. That doesn't mean that they always come to you when you think it's the right time to talk.
Exactly.
It just says that they know what's available. And sometimes children are working through their own thing to find the words.
Yes, and can we even go back to what we were saying earlier with them being now at home, COVID schooling? They're not having access to their friends. They're being told they can't go outside. I know my son is struggling because he can't get into a gym and play basketball and doing some of these other things. Their lives have drastically changed, and then our lives have changed. So we're not talking about it, and we're not even having honest conversations. Like, you know what? I'm equally as frustrated. So I hear what you're saying, and those same feelings I'm having too. So how can we work through our frustration together as a family? Especially now we're talking about blended. Here's one of the things I'm seeing too. Cory, I say this: I've had more referrals in the past 3 or 4 months from Black men than I have had in 3 or 4 years, and some of them are coming because they're frustrated and angry that because of COVID they have not seen their own children as much. That can be depressive, but
let's also think about that. I say COVID wakes us up to who we are.
Yes.
So when you didn't have the gym to work out 10 hours of frustration in a week, you got to sit with yourself and say, do I even like me? Because I got to stay home with myself every single day.
Yes.
And we're facing the things that we could run from easily. That's work. And I've done it myself. It's like, wow, I'm home with my spouse every day. Oh, pray for us. But we've had a good run.
Right.
But there are some spouses that realize, I don't like you for 16 hours a day.
Yes.
I may like you for only 8, and then I miss missing you. I miss the thrill of coming back and saying, I missed you. So it's not always a negative thing. It's more so saying, this has totally shifted. And now, as I told you, I call myself a lunch man. I got to make lunch for my kids. I got to make lunch. That's why I sent them to school.
Right.
And then I have kids who are accidentally not in class because of technical issues. I get an email while I'm working. Your kid is out. So I'm like, no, he's upstairs. Right. And so then we take the stress out on our kids. Or we take it out on ourselves. And so sometimes we're just tired. Sometimes it's not always about I have a bad life. It's just that I'm tired of the version that I'm living right now.
So what do you recommend for those families, those students, those kids, those parents who are just that tired? How do we get untired, for lack of a better phrase, or what can we do? What are some tools? Let's give some tools of hope now. What are some tools that we can do?
Well, what I've learned is that I have become quite creative during COVID. I'm a homebody by nature, but it's different when I'm forced. So I'm like, okay, what can I do in this time?
Right.
And I go to my kids and I say, well, they have this open. So one thing I do with my kids, can we just take a walk? Can we get some natural vitamin D?
That's good.
Can we let the sun work against our bodies and get and get those free healing properties?
Right.
You know, so now the weather's changing and it's cooler, but I mean, it's fall. Let's go out and walk. Those are things. And then as you're walking, you're talking.
Yes.
That way, I don't have to have my cell
Yes.
phone on. I leave, my cell phone's in the pocket, but just in case I'm chased by a dog. But
Right.
it's in the pocket. It's on mute. So I can
Yes.
walk for 30 minutes and engage with my child. Engage with my spouse. I can do that.
And I love that because you're talking about the healthy vitamin D. Because when you are feeling sad and all that, sunlight, the natural vitamin D, we get that, it
Yeah.
changes
Open
our
your window.
mindset. Yes.
Open your window.
Yes.
If it's not reflecting too much on your screen and it's causing glare, or move your computer. Like there are times where I literally open my door and lock my screen door because it's 2020, but I get the natural sunlight in.
Yes.
Because I don't realize that, hey, that's free. Even
It
if
is.
you're living, by strict means, get some free things going on.
Yes.
What I'm doing now, and I didn't tell you this before, but what I'm doing now is I'm developing a line of aromatherapy candles based on mental health. Everybody's
Love
making
it.
candles, so I bought all the I bought
Come
all
on.
the
Love it.
yeah, I bought everything. What I'm doing is I'm putting things together for people who deal with anxiety, even things
Yes.
with anger, things with
Yes.
mood, grief, loneliness. And what
Yes.
it does is it's an inexpensive way, and it's not medical because again we have a thing with medicine. You light the candle for 40 minutes at a time. You're breathing in stuff and you're working. You don't have to do anything but light it.
Yes.
And it really is working to give you that control of your healing.
Yes, aromatherapy is wonderful
It
with
is.
with that everything as well. So here we had another comment that says, I recommend question-based games for families to keep conversation open and to dig a bit deeper. That's
Good.
great.
Yeah,
That is really good.
Yeah, so we have a rack of board games. Some are just basic pop-up games, but it gets us active and it takes our mind off of things. Um, I try to make my kids laugh. I'm the dad that will go in your room and dance because I know you're stressed out.
Well, hey, maybe y'all should be on TikTok. Make a family TikTok video or something.
we bane its existence, but who knows? One day we'll get that bored. But and also what we do is just find that time to watch something silly together.
Yes.
Watch something that's not deep, that's not thought provoking.
Yes.
It could be a
Yes.
comedy show, it could be a cartoon, but do something that we could all enjoy as a family. There are times we just sit there for a half hour and that's all we have, because with 4 different people and 4 different tastes,
Right.
you gotta find those times. There's times that I just take a consensus. So what can we do fun for dinner? What do you want to eat? So let's make a Taco Tuesday. Let's do something different with anything we can, because it is hard because many places are closed. Um, but I would love to make sure that we have some time to talk about, because we talked about suicide. Um, I want to talk about some of the things. Well, just a couple of the myths.
Yes,
on
that's good.
suicide.
Please.
The first thing like I told you offline was, just because someone is considering suicide doesn't always mean that there's a mental illness.
Yes.
There can be a sudden mental break. Meaning,
Right.
let's say if you were unexpectedly fired and you've been at that job for 25
Yes.
years, you don't know what other part of your life exists, or you had a bad breakup.
Yes.
It's not saying you're having that you're going through mental illness. You may be suffering a crisis that for you is so deep that it's wounding you in a way that you need extra help.
It's
So,
an adjustment, and
Yeah.
life changes,
Yeah.
that can, because losing a job is very high on the stress and anxiety scale as well. Yes.
yeah,
And
there
that can
have been
cause a
people
lot
who
of,
have killed themselves because they got their car taken away. It's a
Yes.
car.
Yes.
So for us, it's different.
Yes.
But what does that mean to that person? I
Yes.
also want to say that suicide doesn't look like what you see on TV.
It doesn't.
Nor does the remedy always look like you being in a straitjacket.
right.
You know.
And we yeah, that's always the extreme, and that's done for sensationalization on
Yeah.
television and everything. But I agree with you, for the most part, especially when we're dealing with young men, it is very quick. It is very final can you help me come up with a new term instead of saying successful suicide? Because I think there's
I use suicide completion.
completion. Okay,
Yeah,
I like
because
that.
successful, it can glamorize it for the wrong person.
Thank you. Thank you.
And and we have to understand words matter.
It does.
And getting into words is like, what do you say to a person? Well, actually, what shouldn't you say to a person?
There we go. I'm so glad. Yes. What should you not say to someone?
I've had people tell. Well, I've had people tell me that their parents have told them, "You're not serious."
Yes. Yes.
And again, it's because they're presenting it in a non-stereotypical way.
Yes.
Hey, mom, I'm tired. People don't sound excited when they're tired. So let's use common sense. If I'm tired, I'm going to sound like I'm tired. I'm not going to sound excited because so not only that is we must be crazy.
And that's a trigger.
It
can definitely trigger.
And and the sad part is every bad thing we say, it usually affirms them to go ahead and do it. And so again, when I hear people saying that, I always ask, well, so what's making you think that? That first question says, now you got to tell me why you're thinking about suicide.
Yes.
Then ride the conversation out, but get them to flush their feelings. I'm not here to give you an answer. At first, my job is not to give you an answer. My job is to hear you.
Thank you. Our job is to hear, to listen, but active listening. Come on, people. That means not judging, listening to understand,
and not giving my opinion. It's almost like having an organic conversation. I hear what you're saying and I absorb it. Then I respond based on what you say. I don't have canned responses, meaning I don't go off of a script. Every case is different, and I think people want to be seen as different. They want to be seen as individuals. So they want answers. I think people want answers. So if they're brave enough, and I tell the story, if they're brave enough to tell you that they're contemplating suicide, I see that as a cry out for someone to be heard. If they wanted to do it alone, they would have done it, but they said it to you.
Yes, 20 Grace says it this way. Says, personally, I never say suicide to a client. I always say killing yourself. I call it what it is. And really, that's true. We cannot dance around that issue and say, oh, you're thinking about hurting yourself. You're thinking about killing yourself. You're thinking about... So we have to be very brave and have those conversations and not beat around the bush with what we say about it.
Yeah, and I think and I think it's a case by case.
Yes.
Again, we have the methodologies and the modalities, right? So we're taught those things. But then when we listen to each client, we then shape those modalities based on the need.
Yes.
And again, I think that some people really have this earnest, desire to, to feel cared for, and because they can't place their feelings as a priority somewhere else, we can do that for them.
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, so address Paula Williams' issues when we're talking about some of the adjustments that's been happening and changes. And she's also, my high school senior has been going to school in the building every day for over the weekend. There have been 3 COVID positive cases, and just like that, they all had to stay at home for 14 days. Another adjustment. You're absolutely right.
Well, I wonder if part of the answer is perhaps the school districts need to invest in more therapeutic services for students.
Most definitely.
What if it's a group chat once a week with a certain set of students and perhaps parents? Because we don't have the resources to see every student, of course. But what if they have resources to meet with groups of students maybe once every other week? They may need a bi-weekly talk to figure out what the common thoughts and complaints are, so they can then address their next messages based on that consensus, because you need data. You need to understand. I don't have all the answers because I can only focus on my 2 children. I know what their needs are, but we have millions of students with their and their needs are different. And then what about that child that can't tell you that I'm home all day and I'm being abused? School was my safe place.
It really is.
I was a kid.
Wow.
So if I was dealing with COVID back then, I don't know how I would have coped. But you're talking about a kid that loved going to school because they knew they were going to have a hot meal.
Yeah.
You knew that there was one teacher that would inspire you because they saw something in you.
Right.
So all these things have been closed down. Now I'm scared because I know if mom or dad pops off, or even my big siblings or someone else bullies me, I can't leave the house. I don't have a recourse.
Definitely, creating these avenues and definitely some safe havens for them, and I pray and hope that these kids or anyone listening, we would, one, have these conversations, two, we would actively listen to them, and three, that these kids would hopefully get some resources or something out there talking to their teachers, especially since they're having Zoom on there, requesting their counselor, or what have you with that. And I'm hoping that the teachers are making these visits or calls to check on their kids.
But I'm glad
with
you also
that.
said school, because there's a chat thing on Zoom on the side as well. One of my kids recognized that a kid was saying something that was kind of just
Oh, good. Yeah.
different. And he was like, Dad, this kid's talking strange. And I came in the room because I check on them randomly, and I read it, and I immediately said, contact your teacher, and contact your counselor about what you're seeing right now,
Yes.
because you may be that lifeline that, because the kid was just saying stuff that was just so out of order, and I'm looking at it, it's like, that's something.
Yeah. Corey, that's
can't call it
good.
this. So I teach my kids responsibility. If you see it, if you can't tell, if you don't feel safe, or there's a safe space to tell someone there, call me, and I
Beautiful.
can, and we can find a way to get that out, because my oldest kid is such an empath. I said, well, sometimes you don't have the authority or the place to say something. But you have
Right.
parent to parent. I can call
Right.
the parent for you.
Yes, yes, that's good. Especially empowering youth, and those programs and schools and that have been doing those things. We found that those have been very, very successful. When I used to be a executive director of a charter school out here for at-risk youth, we empowered them how not to stay silent.
Well,
But
yeah. Well, there's large success. If you look at a lot of substance abuse recovery things, they have what's called peer recovery counselors.
yes,
These are
yes,
people who are in line with what they've been through.
yes,
They share the story, but they are the successful part of the story.
yes,
And they get more success because they feel in kind with that person. So yes, you're
yes.
absolutely right. These are peers that know what they're going through at their school. They know the people that they may have an issue with. They know the teacher that may treat them a certain way. But because you have a different outlook, maybe you can tell me how to cope with that.
Right.
Because I'm not there. I don't know the teacher. I only know what you tell me.
Right, and even teaching them, because they have that bond to bond. Maybe it is, maybe there's something we create, how to have peer groups, internet virtual peer groups or something.
Yeah. And they can be
Twani
moderated.
Gray, I would love
Yeah.
for you to kind of help us with that. That'd be really great.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
and
that's moderated
Jerron,
by an adult.
Yeah.
You could have the adult moderating, because you still, kids are kids. But you can give them the structure, and you can, have a leader in that kids group, and they can learn how to be able to eliminate all that stuff. But that's a great idea. And like I said, we're still flushing out the needs of kids at home during this time. Like we don't even know the gamut of what we need to
yes,
be as resourceful as we can.
yes.
Um,
We have another comment I just want to kind of
Sure,
address here. It
take
says,
your
Chawani tells us, says, my issue is the second step, hospitalization. It says, my county only hospitalize if you only firmly voice, I am going to hurt myself or others. But the gap in the service is the insurance companies that only pay for one session weekly. Yes, no matter the diagnosis, leaving many to suffer in their moods until their weekly session progresses or they are committed after a serious attempt. You are
Yeah,
absolutely right with
that's
that.
very true. And I know, as a practicing therapist who may accept insurance, I'm sure your office has dealt with loopholes and things, or or matters where you wanted to do certain things, but you have to get permission. It has to be pre-authorized, and by
Yep.
that time, that can take days. It can take
And
days.
yeah, Twani, what we do, because I know there's a couple insurances out here that I will call directly and say, hey, this kid is very suicidal or threatening to kill themselves or doing self-harm. I need you to approve for the next month 2 sessions, 3 sessions a week,
Yeah.
because it's that detrimental with that. And I will keep fighting them. I know there's a couple of them that will do that and has definitely, especially when they see the severity of sometimes the diagnosis, but it is a common challenge that we do
Yeah.
have.
And I also think certain counties have more money set aside for those complementary services as opposed to other counties as well. So it's not may not always be it when it's only an insurance thing is because there may not be other free or low costing resources.
And even for our and I think that it's a nationwide initiative for the transitional age youth, the TAY populations. With that, do you guys have the TAY populations out there in out there in the East Coast and everything too?
It sounds familiar.
So what they have out here is what they call transitional age youth populations, and it's for the 16 for that same population group, 16 to 24. If they do not have insurance, you can go there and get free services and definitely have support groups that are all paid via the county.
Yeah.
So I'm in San Bernardino County here in Southern California. So sometimes I will recommend for some of these young people, listen, you're 16, 17, go to the TAY, see what kind of services they have. They have suicide support groups, self-harm support groups in that, and possibly even getting that additional supportive services along with your individual, get you some groups where now we're having several layers of accountability to help out with our young people as well, because that's what's needed in this, not just the one-on-ones, but getting them in groups, getting them in age-appropriate groups too, and some of these other things. So,
so we've talked about, getting into the hospital and, and we talk about the hotline. I think the hotline is the first start to understand, because they will help you understand what your next step may be. It may not even be hospitalization. It may be you having a visit at that moment, because it's not always that you're hospitalized. It's not. But also, what do we do? What do we do once they come home? What do we do once it's revealed that my daughter, my son, my father, my uncle tried to kill himself? What do we do, in support of that? Because there's a journey. It's not over. You mentioned self-harm. I want to say that if someone is cutting themselves, one thing that you not even probably must do while they're working through whatever they're going through is you have to remove all things that are possible. You have to remove them out of access.
Yes, that's it.
From the person, and you have to monitor them more than usual, and it's going to get on their nerves.
But it's for their safety.
Yeah, it's for their safety. And usually, when they're getting their help, they're told that they're going to be asking you more questions. Folks are going to be monitoring you more, so they're working through to understanding that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're getting very creative now with even some of the cutting. So when I tell parents all the time, listen, notice if it's I'm in the desert part of Southern California. If it's 90 and 100 degrees out and they're wearing a sweatshirt.
Absolutely.
And boys are more creative, because I've had a young male client and he was cutting on his inner thighs, but he wears long basketball shorts, so you would never know. Or they're cutting in between their toes.
And get this, and I'll tell you this: someone I know was taking the razor blade out of, because so everything was taken away, and they were still cutting. And it kind of find out they took the pencil sharpeners in the house. The plug-in ones or the battery operated, and broke the pencil sharpener, took the little blade that you use to sharpen the pencil somehow and put it on a stick. and so you're right, they are being creative, but I do think, as we talk about conversation, always ask them every day, so how you feeling? Ask it randomly.
That's it. Yes.
And don't give them an expectation that, Father's going to ask at 4:00. No, just ask randomly, so how you feeling right now? Is there anything you want to talk about? Take them on those walks. Have them journal if they, and also find the things that they love. Like, my kids love art. If they can't talk to me, draw it out. What makes you feel comfortable enough to speak?
We had another comment, and then I'm going to pull up Paula Williams' comment up there next.
Sure.
Which says, Mr. David, will you share what the family members or friends should look for? So let's kind of review some of the things again that we should look for.
Absolutely.
How do we know, for those who might have joined late, how do we know some of the telltale signs of someone who might be suicidal or desiring to kill themselves with that?
So the first thing always, if they even mention suicide, it didn't mention I wish I was dead, or I wish I wasn't born. That's classic. Getting the means to take their own life, such as pills, alcohol, drugs, guns, knives. If they're not if they're not a hunter, why they have all these knives all of a sudden? if you see them withdraw from their normal activities.
That's it. Withdrawal.
As humans, we have routines.
Mm-hmm.
If that routine changes, let it be because I got a new
Mm-hmm.
job and I have to adjust my time schedule
Mm-hmm.
or something else,
Mm-hmm.
but not because of anything else. As we said, if they look uncommonly disheveled, some people just have a
Yes.
disheveled look. It's their style. But if you're known to be pristine and you let yourself go down with no reason, mood swings. Mood
Yes.
swings. Yeah, you can go from 0 to 250 in 5 seconds with no
Yes.
explanation. Um,
Isolation.
isolation is isolation is the biggest thing
Yes.
because suicides usually, well, almost always happen in isolation. When they feel this hopeless, like there's no outlook
Yes.
on anything, you make the
Yes.
outlook for them, and no matter how much you encourage them, they don't see it for some reason. We talk about the increase of use of alcohol
Yes.
and drugs if it's unusual, changing their routines. Again, we in terms of eating, if they eat less, if they sleep more, and being self-destructive. So we have such a myriad of things to look for.
And I love this. What 20 is also says. She's talking about giving away things,
And that's
especially
true.
their
And that's on the
prized
list.
possessions.
That's on the
Yes,
list.
you have to look for that. Or if they said, Dad, you've really been a great dad to me, and I just want to tell you how much you've been and how much I
Yeah.
appreciate you, and I will really miss you. And da, da, da. You're like, wait a minute now, I
Yeah.
ain't going anywhere. Now hold on
Listen,
with
I
that.
tell you, if anybody sees me giving away my $80 selfie light, call the police. Okay, because that thing is
We call
that
it
thing is the bomb. Makes me look like
Yes.
$1 million. But people know
But
that.
yeah, right. So those are, and we want to help to educate people,
Yeah.
and definitely have those conversations. Listen, y'all, it might get tough, but still have those conversations. I want to put up a comment here that
Absolutely.
Paula has says with your next topic of suicide. 4 years ago, my father took his own life tragically. My condolences, and unexpectedly. His note, yes, check out those notes. His note said, "I'm sorry. I did this to myself. I'm too old and I have no family." That did not give us any closure. We were just with his family. Through grief counseling, I had to accept that I'll never know why he did what he did, and that's been very difficult. Again, Paula, thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing such a personal piece with it.
Well,
But
I'm
you're
glad that
right.
you're getting grief counseling because
Yes.
when you can't answer things yourself, there is room
Yes.
for healing and new perspectives. And we're talking about a man. We're talking about a man that, and I'll give you just a quick example. My father always felt like if he was not contributing financially, he wasn't a father. And I always told him point blank, I got my own money. I needed you. So I think
Yes.
when we turn the tide on what men are expected to do and how we show up,
Yes.
someone taught
Yes.
him that. Someone taught him that. And no matter what I did, as long as he believed that that was his thing, when he didn't have a job, he felt depressed. I'm like, but okay, we can make it work.
But that goes back with our concept about what and what the preconceived notions and the things that are built into us about what the role of a man is and what the
Yeah.
role of a woman is, and having these conversations, y'all.
Yeah, and it's always hardest for men to put on paper or verbalize these deep, eloquent statements of emotions.
Yes.
Because again, when we talk about trying to do this to a 13-year-old who's never had that, we're done. Like
Yes.
it's almost a closed case. It's only when he or she gets into a calamity that they have to be taught. Okay, tell us, open up, because a calamity may be a result of never opening up.
Yeah.
So it takes modeling. As I said in the
Yes.
conversation earlier, it takes repeated modeling. It takes repeated affirmations. If you know someone is closed up, you don't give up on them. You
Yeah.
know they're closed up. You may have to
Yes.
text them 4 times a day. What I do as responsibility to my friends that I know that are alone, I have a group message. Someone texted me the other day on Facebook, said, "Can you add me back to that brother's text group you had? Because I changed my number. It's been years, and I think I want to
Yes.
get in the group." And it's nothing more than affirming their presence here,
That's right.
saying you're thought of, you're valued, and if there's anything you need, reach out to somebody.
Yes.
And yeah, so um, it's constant modeling. It's not going to happen, and then we get frustrated when it doesn't happen on our time. Like I told you to open up. Don't get mad for them not opening up. It's not your fault. And believe me, they want to just as much as they can't. I don't think anybody wants to be closed off. I think
Yes.
that the fear of doing that means I've never been that wide open. I don't know
Yes.
with that wound what is going to walk into that wound.
Yes. That's amazing. Listen, Cory, I cannot thank you enough for just taking time out of your busy schedule, man, just to have this conversation, this
You're
candid
more than welcome. You're
conversation.
more than welcome.
And again, I want to put up here, again, the Suicide National Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. And you can always text HOME to 741-741. Cory, how can people get a hold of you if they've had other questions and
It is.
yes.
I've made it easy. So first thing, my first name is Cory, as it stated, because people want to put an I and a K somewhere in there.
Right, right,
But
right, right.
so my website is CoryGeorge.com. You can find out more about my background, what I do, what I can possibly help you through. Instagram is Cory George Cares, because that really is my heart. I care. So
Yes.
you can connect with me. You can send me a private message. Love to hear from you. Even if it's a question, for me, it's not always about business. It's about purpose. So perhaps you just need a breakthrough, or perhaps you just need
Yes.
another way of thinking about something. Um, it's what I'm here for, you know.
Cory, thank you again, man. I appreciate you coming out tonight. And as always, we want you to always reach out to us. And again, I can be reached. I'm looking for my own banner in here, Cory. Got too many in here. Definitely at Mental Health Matters with Marty on mentalhealthmarty.com. Can't even find it. We got too many things going on. There it is, mentalhealthmarty.com with that. And then, of course, you can always text I Matter to 31996 in order to get further information. But we always want you never to suffer in silence, y'all, but to, as I always say, speak up, speak out, and to live. But let me give you one more shout out too. Please like and subscribe to my podcast here, Mental Health Matters with Marty. And you definitely, it's on every form of your normal podcast streaming, and we would love for you to listen to that. And if you are an Apple phone user, please, we would beg you to leave a 5-star rating and leave us a review so we know how we're doing with that and everything. So, Cory, again, thank you for coming on tonight. I so appreciate you. This won't be the last time. We're going to have you on, man, and have some other things too. So again, be safe out there, y'all, and much love to you. And until next time, we'll see you next Monday. And join us on tomorrow. We have a show with my co-host Thomas Davis, and we're going to be talking about how to deal with anxiety, grief, and frustration, especially during this pandemic. Thank you again, Cory, and we'll see you next time. All right.